हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं केनियन ह्यूमन राइट्स कमीशन के चेयरमैन मार्टिन मेवंजाना, जिन्होंने केनिया की पुलिस और जो मुख्तलिफ जो फेक एनकाउंटर्स और मुख्तलिफ पुलिस मुकाबलों में जो केनिया की पुलिस ने लोगों को मारा, उसके हवाले से वो कई सालों से काम कर रहे हैं। अरशद शरीफ की जो किलिंग हुई है उसके हवाले से भी मार्टिन मेवंजाना का कहना है कि वो पुलिस की जो अकाउंट है वो उसको नहीं मानते। व्हाट डू यू थिंक, हु किल्ड अरशद शरीफ?
All points to hallmarks of an inside job. When you look at the circumstances under which Arshad was killed and the excuse that is given by the Kenyan security agencies, they do cite an excuse of a mistaken identity. First and foremost, there is no corroborating evidence to back up this excuse, this allegation of mistaken identity. Something that was clearly planned and executed. It simply shows that he was probably surveilled for a good or inordinate period of time, because the hard questions that we'd ask is, how did the security agencies know that he was actually in that specific locality? So the Kenyan police has been notorious for unlawful killings. As the Kenya Human Rights Commission, over the last couple of years, we have documented cases of unlawful killings and enforced disappearances through the Missing Voices Coalition.
The Kenyan police have given different kinds of versions.
They actually are guilty as charged, because when you look at the first excuse of mistaken identity, it does not hold water, because when anybody makes a complaint to your police, you give a clear description. In this case, we were told a complaint was made of a stolen vehicle. Now, the vehicle that was stolen did actually not match the vehicle that Arshad was traveling in. So the case of mistaken identity just does not arise. It's not an excuse that can be given by the security agencies. He was traveling in a V8 Land Cruiser. Ordinarily in Kenya, it is actually unheard of where you hear security agencies stopping vehicles of that nature, because these are vehicles that are usually associated with our members of parliament or cabinet secretaries or even important people in society. When you look at our constitution provides a clear framework. They must respect human rights. There are other enabling pieces of legislation that guide police in Kenya on how they conduct their routine operations, including, setting up roadblocks or this or that. But you look at the circumstances under which Arshad was killed and you realize that there was an outright disregard for ordinary routine procedures. In my honest opinion, it looks like a clear case that was clearly planned, clearly choreographed. The argument that the excuse or the reasoning given by the National Police Service that there's somebody from the car who tried to fire at them and they fired back also does not hold water, simply because they have not told us or they have not told Kenyans and the world at large. As to whether the firearms from the car was actually obtained, or to even or even a ballistic reports has not been shared with members of the public.
Why would police do such a thing? Do you have any examples where the Kenyan police may have carried out contract killings or may have taken bribes, or when you talk about inside job, what is your basis of making such an allegation?
All the countries in the world, Kenya's police is ranked number 3 when it comes to corruption. We have had instances where the police has actually killed innocent citizens, including Willie Kimani, who was a human rights lawyer, who was actually flagged by police, abducted, only later on to be tortured, and only later on to be found dead. And that is one amongst the very many cases of unlawful killing by the police. Courts have pronounced themselves on some of these human rights violations, and there are some police officers who have actually been jailed. Unfortunately, investigation into such cases usually take a very inordinate period of time. For instance, if you look at the Willie Kimani case, it took over 4 years, for them to investigate, prefer charges against these officers, follow due process, and get these officers convicted. Right. And
so you have said that Kenyan police operates with impunity when it comes to human rights, abductions and disappearances. Why do you say that? Are there any case studies that demonstrate, that establish that the Kenyan police actually operates with impunity?
For the last 5 years, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, through the Missing Voices Coalitions, has documented over 400 cases of unlawful killings by police and enforced disappearances. In fact, during the COVID-19 pandemic, within the first 6 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, police actually killed more Kenyans as opposed to the virus itself killing Kenyans. That is how bad it is.
How many?
I think within the first 6 months, there were over 25 Kenyans who had passed on.
Can you give us an assessment of how the Kenyan police targeted Arshad Sharif?
You could clearly tell that whoever shot him was a marksman who has been trained for a very inordinate period of time. Ordinarily, it is very difficult to shoot, to get a headshot on a specific target or on an individual in a moving vehicle. Even at close range, it is usually very difficult. But when you look at the circumstances under which Arshad passed on, he took a shot to the head and then another to the chest. And now that clearly tells you that this is something that was well planned, properly planned, and even the roadblock that was actually placed before the road was actually never there, because ordinarily when there are roadblocks on any of Kenya's major highways or any of Kenya's roads, I mean, citizens are aware that, at a certain point in time, you will be stopped by authorities, and probably it's a routine checkup for driving, as to whether you have a valid driving license, or if there is a routine operation being conducted. But in Arshad's case, this was not the case.